You know what I love about you guys? You never just let me make one video on a topic. You always have suggestions for a follow-up video, or 6. For instance, one of the most frequent requests after the variable ND roundup video was what solid ND filter I was using for comparison, as well as requests for the SimMod filters and what I think about the Haida system. Well, today we're going to tackle 2 of those 3 topics. Let's get undone. Gerald Undone. He's crazy. What's happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and this episode was sponsored by my hero, my longtime friend, and my personal shoulder to cry on, Reba McEntire. So a fun coincidence occurred with those filter requests. The solid ND filter that I was using for comparison in the variable ND roundup was actually from Haida because I've been testing the M10 system for a little while now. So for those of you that don't know anything about it, I'll give you an explanation and a demo, and for those of you that requested my opinion on it, well, I'll give you that too. The M10 is a filter holder system similar to others that you might have seen, but it does have a couple clever features. The first is that this is a drop-in filter system. It's not only about the 100mm filters that go in the front, because Haida actually makes some pretty great circular filters as well. For instance, the fixed ND that I used in that comparison as the control was this Haida 3-stop drop-in ND filter. And I've been pleasantly surprised with the quality of these Haida filters because I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to get when I was testing this M10 kit because the information is kind of limited on them. This ND filter, for example, comes in just a simple white box with no specs, no information on it other than the power of the filter, and no manual. I don't even know what it's made out of, but it's very light, very easy to clean, and when I dropped it in, I was impressed by its rendition and sharpness. Now, the M10 system comes in a few different kits if you want different filters bundled with it, but the base kit for the holder doesn't actually come with this fixed ND, but instead comes with a circular polarizer, which is also quite good and has a convenient dial on the top for adjusting the polarization angle. It too is very light. In fact, this whole kit is surprisingly light, especially when compared to something like the Wine Country. The kit will come with whatever step-up ring you choose to be paired with it, but you can order more adapter rings separately, and then those just screw onto your lens, and then there's a lever on the side here that you pull, and then you can just take the whole filter system off like that. Now this is a smart system, and I like it because it makes it easy to quickly remove the filters once you get the hang of it. And I say that because there is a bit of a learning curve. It works by just having this little notch that goes into the groove along the side of the ring, but when I first started using it, I was never quite sure if it was on all the way or how much pressure I was supposed to apply in order to put it off and on. It's actually quite easy to do once you get the hang of it, but it will take a little bit of practice. On the front of the filter holder are slots for 2 2mm insert filters, and then in the package there's also mounts and screws for a third. I found upon first use that the filters were a bit stiff to slide in and try and get them into the specific position you want. They'd kind of jump around a little bit, but after a few hours of use, they've kind of broken in now and they slide quite a bit more smoothly. This is one area that's a little bit lacking though, because there's not really any buttons or safety clips to control the movement or prevent the filters from falling out the bottom like you would find on, say, the Wine Country system. But I suppose it's a bit of a trade-off for keeping it smaller and lighter, and I haven't really been afraid that my filters were going to fall out the bottom, even though they can, because it is stiff enough to hold them in place, but just something to be aware of. The insert filter that I've been testing is their medium grad ND, which goes from 1.2 stops to about 4 stops throughout the gradient, and it's from the Red Diamond series, which again is really high quality. And it's with these grad NDs that the filter holder systems like this really start to shine, because the issue with typical circular screw-on grad NDs is that you're not able to set the horizontal position that you want or where you want the framing to be relative to the density. Basically, you just have to kind of like mid-frame the horizon all the time. But often you might want to put the horizon line on the first third or the second third, and so the advantage with these slidable ones obviously is that you can choose where you want the gradient to fall and the density of it, so how dark you want your sky or whatever it is you're shooting, but also where in the frame you want your horizon line to be, and you have the flexibility with that, which is great. And then you also have the ability to rotate and position them on funky angles in case maybe you were, say, following a river which went on a bit of a slope at the end of the frame. Well, you can position it that way. And you can also use the filter upside down as a bit of a reverse grad if you were shooting a scene where the foreground was brighter or more reflective, and it's very easy also to switch into portrait mode. Now, those advantages are somewhat common when it comes to filter holders. I mean, that's the main reason why you would go through the trouble of mounting this on the front of your camera. But what the Haida gets right is when it comes to stacking. Typically, in most holder systems, the filter that would be on the inside would be a circular polarizer, and then you would put your grad ND in front. But if you wanted to make the whole scene darker, then the reason why there's 2 grooves is your first groove would be for a solid ND, and then you would put your grad ND insert filter in front of that. But with the Haida, it's actually more economical in a way because you can take out the circular polarizer and put in a fixed ND drop-in filter if you want, and then you only need to add just the grad ND insert filter. And as you can probably imagine, the drop-in filters are significantly cheaper generally than large 100mm insert filters would be. That being said, though, you can actually get from Haida their solid ND insert filters from 2 stops up to 15 stops for about $169. So more expensive, but not crazy expensive. Now I've got some sample images here to give you an idea of what you can do with the different combinations of filters. So this first shot here is a shot with no filters on. Oh, by the way, something else that I really like about the Haida system that I forgot to tell you is that if you want to shoot with no filters, let's take out the grad ND and then take out the fixed ND, then they give you this empty drop-in filter. There's nothing in it. And you can pop it in here, and then the advantage is that the light leakage that would typically come on the sides is now stopped, so you're not going to lose any light intensity. It seals it up for you. I thought that was a clever inclusion, and I appreciated it. Anyway, so here's that shot with no filters. And then here it is now with the drop-in solid ND. Nothing spectacular, just darker, but the quality and clarity is there. But now here it is with the circular polarizer dropped in and dialed into a setting that I liked, and the grad ND insert filter slid to a position that I liked. We get a great combination of effects here. The sky is darkened, but we still keep the saturation in the trees, and the reflections on the water are better controlled. And despite stacking filters, we're not actually losing any detail. If anything, our detail is increased because the trees aren't encased in a hazy, overexposed bloom. Now, in order to create this look using typical screw-on filters, you'd have to stack them, which would lead to more vignetting. But you'll notice in this image, using the Haida system, that there is almost no vignetting, even in the extreme corners. Here's a couple more examples of the same effect. The greens stay vibrant, but the sky is reeled in. And then this sample here is to give you an idea of the angles you can pull off, but also how much the grad can change the image. Look at how blue the sky is on the left and how blown out it is on the right. But this technique allows you to maintain the exposure on the tree to maximize its detail. Lastly, if you want to go bananas and use a polarizer and a solid ND and a grad ND on a funky angle, you can take long exposure photos of moving water, but also control the intensity of the reflections on the moving water for a fun, almost abstract image. This one also lets you see what your maximum expected flare should be when using the filters that I tested, because this was a pretty flare-heavy configuration and angle, and yet it managed to control it quite well. When I took the filters off for that same shot, it looked like the Bifrost from Thor was streaming across the lens. Packaging and accessories are good. The holder comes in a nice leather case, and the build quality is quite nice as well. The holder is made out of aluminum, so like I said earlier, it manages a nice balance between lightweight but durable. And I also like the lens range that's available. You can adapt all the way down to 37mm and then up to 82mm. I don't know why I'm holding this one up, it's a 58mm, but you get the point. Pretty much all the lenses I can imagine you would have, you can get adapter rings for this filter, so that's pretty great. Overall, I really like the system. I think it'll be my go-to now for any landscape shots that I'm doing. But if we take a quick note to compare it for value, I would say that anything that comes in at its price point, the Haida wins. I like the system better than the Lee system and some of the other ones that I tested, and it's definitely better than the discount systems that you would get. So the only real comparison I would say is something maybe a little bit more higher end, like to the Wine Country, but it comes in a little bit more affordable, and it's significantly smaller and more compact than the Wine Country. If you get just the holder system from Haida, it's $195 for the circular polarizer and, one adapter ring of your choice and the drop-in filter and all that stuff. But if you get the same thing from Wine Country with the circular polarizer included, it's like $449. So definitely significantly cheaper there. Now, the majority of your money is going to be spent on filters more so than the holder. And like we talked about, the Haida filters aren't cheap, but I would say that they're on par with something like Wine Country, and the quality is really great. It's probably more economical, though, to buy like filter kits. So if we look at the Enthusiast kit, for instance, from Haida, it's, I think, $600, and that comes with pretty much everything we talked about here. You get a solid ND, you get the circular polarizer, you get a grad ND, and obviously the holder system itself and all the cases and that kind of thing, and that's about $600. Now, the equivalent kit from Wine Country, I think, is about $800. So you save a little bit of money, and in my opinion, for the smaller, lighter size, save a few dollars, I would probably go for the Haida system overall, even though I do like a couple of the features on the Wine Country, but mainly because I don't have any issues with the quality of the Haida filters at all. The Wine Country might have had a little bit of better execution when it came to the buttons and the controls, but the Haida filters have no color cast, they're easy to clean, and this whole drop-in idea so that you can stack your NDs in a different way than you'd be able to with the Wine Country is a really smart idea. And as you saw when I compared this to the variable NDs, there's basically no lost quality over shooting unfiltered. So if you're into shooting landscapes and you've been looking to get into some of the larger 100mm filters, I highly recommend that you check out the Haida M10 system. Overall, I give it 4.5 abstract river sunsets out of 5. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. Alright, I'm done.